Brendan Lupetin with Myers, Evans, Lupetin, and Unitin. Please check us out on the web at myersmedmal.com. So the terrible has happened and a loved one has died, and you or other family members or friends are suspicious about the circumstances, and you're wondering if maybe medical malpractice may have played a role in the death. The big recommendation today is to make sure you get an autopsy. Now, it's not something that you really want to think about when something terrible has happened and somebody has passed away, but it can be absolutely critical to the success of a potential medical malpractice lawsuit whether an autopsy was actually performed. And the reason for that is because it is critically important to know what the actual and precise cause of death was. If nobody knows what exactly caused the death, or there are questions about what caused the death, that can be a big problem in a medical malpractice case, because one of the elements you have to prove is that there was a mistake, and then we know there's a death, but you have to show the middle piece of what was the cause of the death. Now, an autopsy is critically important because the whole purpose of an autopsy is for a forensic pathologist or a medical examiner to examine the body and determine not only what the cause was, but sometimes even the mechanisms that led up to it. That's a critically important piece for the medical malpractice lawyer to then determine whether the mistake that was believed to have occurred led to the end result of the death. A big question people have is, well, how does it work? How do you get an autopsy? Well, there's two big ways that it can occur. One is with the coroner. So there's a coroner that's affiliated with your particular county in Pennsylvania that you live in. And under certain circumstances, they are required to investigate how the person died. And if they cannot determine definitively what an obvious cause of death was, then the coroner is supposed to order an autopsy that's performed sometimes by the hospital's own pathologist or sometimes by a medical examiner affiliated with the coroner. One of the big overarching reasons is if there was any suspicious activity, whether there's any suspicious situations that led to it, or whether the cause of death in the course of, say, medical care was unusual or not easily explainable. In those situations, the coroner is supposed to order an autopsy. Well, what happens if the coroner doesn't order an autopsy? Or what if the coroner doesn't even get involved? Well, first, you have the right to reach out to the coroner and explain the situation and ask them to look into the death of your loved one. They are permitted to order autopsies at their discretion. But if, for instance, the coroner wasn't contacted or the coroner doesn't want to look into the death even though you requested it, you have the right to get your own private autopsy performed. There are forensic pathologists throughout Pennsylvania who, for money, will perform an autopsy and generate a report of their findings of the cause of death. And that's just as significant and important and reliable as any report that's generated as a result of a coroner's request. So you have the right, one way or another, if you have any suspicion about the cause of a loved one's death, whether you believe there was medical malpractice or you just want to get to the bottom of how this actually happened, you can pay for and arrange for an autopsy yourself. Usually the easiest way to set this up is to talk to your funeral director. Talk to them and ask them who they would recommend as a potential well-qualified pathologist to conduct the autopsy. As a medical malpractice lawyer, we cannot stress enough when somebody passes away and there's questions about potential medical malpractice how critically important it is to make sure that an autopsy is performed. There have been many times that our cases have been won based specifically on the findings of the autopsy. In other instances, we've had to turn down many cases where we decided that we couldn't even handle the case because no autopsy was performed, and we believed that there was going to be too much question or too much of a defense about what the actual cause of the death was. even though it's a very difficult decision to make, and it's at a very difficult time when somebody has just passed away, and if you're even asking yourself, should we get an autopsy? The answer is yes, and err on the side of either asking the coroner, asking the hospital to arrange for an autopsy themselves, or do it yourself. If you have any other questions about the specifics of arranging for or how an autopsy in Pennsylvania works, please again check out myersmedmal.com, where we have a lot of information about this. Thank you.